Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2023 Coaster Rumble.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble here. Danny Miller alongside Andy Rabarchek. We're back, Andy, after some time off. Very, very busy times this time of year for us. You've got stuff going on at school and at work, as do I. You've got the kids, so we're back recording.
And I got sick. I couldn't talk for 3 days. Couldn't talk. Couldn't say a word.
You had no voice for a while. I'm sure there's some listeners and viewers who would have appreciated that.
Well, and I said I can't let Danny Miller get to sit there and say whatever he wants. Somebody's got to call this guy on the carpet. I'm apparently the only one that's qualified to do so.
Somebody's got to keep this troublemaker on this side of the screen in line, right? Yeah. So, but we're back. We're trying to record both episodes here tonight. So, hopefully we can get through this without too much trouble here. But tonight we're going through the final four. So we're narrowing down our wood and steel final fours that we got to in the previous two episodes. And we're getting them down to the two finalists, our two championship combatants in both the wood brackets and steel brackets from the 2022 Ride Warrior Choice Awards, which it feels like forever ago now that we had. We're actually about the same amount of time from voting opening for the 2023 awards as voting opening from the last awards. So we're running into April here, but that's okay. The parks are starting to open, new rides are starting to open. So
who doesn't like April Madness? Everyone's got March Madness. Who wants that? We want April Madness. That's what we want.
That's right. So what do you say we jump in to our wood final four here? Again, we're getting our final four down to the final two, the finalists. And if you recall from a few weeks ago, we had Ghost Rider from
you'll have to remind me of what
yeah, that's right. So we had Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm going up against the Voyage from Holiday World, and on the other side we had El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure going up against Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. So we're going to tackle Ghost Rider versus Voyage here in this first matchup, and we didn't talk about this very much in the selection show or in the Rumble shows. But one thing that I went through kind of on my own was I went through and made some charts of like the trends of some of these rides over the last several years. And Ghost Rider is certainly an outlier in that it is one of the rides that has a very steady uptick, and the curve is getting steeper and steeper for Ghost Rider, and it's on this trajectory to be in the top five very, very soon, if not this year. And really, I guess the question is whether or not it has the power to take down a ride like Voyage. I mean, Ghost Rider was in the same group as Phoenix this year, and a lot of people saw that as an upset. It should be no surprise. And the people who have been keeping score at home know that most of their scores in the brackets this year are downright terrible. And we talked about how diabolical some of the groups were in both the wood and steel side. And the Ghost Rider Phoenix group was not a group that people expected to have trouble with. Yet it's a group that almost everybody had almost everything wrong when it came to the ranking. A lot of people had Phoenix and Ghost Rider switched in the 1-2 spot. A lot of people had Shivering Timbers and Ravine Flyer and Prowler all mixed up. So there were very, very few points collected by anybody in that group. So Ghost Rider was the surprise in this year's Final Four, I guess. But it's not taking down Voyage, right?
No. And to be honest, people always overrank Phoenix, myself included, that the one year where I didn't know any of the results and I was just doing stuff off the cuff and I actually filled out an actual bracket. My one big mistake was overranking Phoenix. People always do this. Phoenix does well in this poll, but doesn't do that exceptionally well in this poll. That
Yeah.
you start thinking, oh, because it wins golden tickets and it wins this and whatever else, that Phoenix is this fantastic ride that everyone ranks real highly, and it's just not the case. Ghost Rider, as you said, has been on the uptick. No, I do not think Ghost Rider is going to beat the Voyage. I don't even rank it that way. I do think Ghost Rider is a top 4 wood coaster though in the world. Like I don't think that's a ridiculous statement to make. I think it's a top 4 coaster. I really do.
No, I think that's valid. I am personally I'm one of the biggest Phoenix fans you'll find. See what I did there. But I mean I still slightly prefer Phoenix to Ghost Rider, but I'm not one to argue. If you have Ghost Rider above Phoenix, they are very, very different. They've got much different feels to them, especially since the retrack with Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider has been much improved since that retrack. And it's still a top 10 wood coaster for me. I think I have it like 6 or 7, like it's bordering top 5 for me as well. So we're close there, and it's in the range where I wouldn't argue. Um, but of course, it is the Voyage moving on, so no surprises here. So Ghost Rider, congratulations to Ghost Rider. It's deepest run ever in the Thrilling 32, and making it into the final 4 here. But at some point, like we always say, to be the man, you've got to beat the man, and
Yeah,
nobody's taken down Voyage yet. So now we get to the other side of this bracket here, and we get into this El Toro Outlaw Run discussion here, which feels like a
is
discussion
it a
we've had.
discussion?
Well, it feels like a discussion we've had many, many times over the last several years, and it's not one that has had a championship spot at stake because we've always had Lightning Rod in the mix, and with Lightning Rod knocked out because it was in the same group as Voyage earlier, now we've got to have this Outlaw Run versus El Toro discussion here. In 2021, which was the last year's poll, Outlaw Run was number 3 and El Toro was number 4. It was by a decisive margin, but they were number 3 and 4. Outlaw Run in 2020 was number 3. El Toro was number 5, but they were actually closer in percentage points that year. Going back to 2019, again, Outlaw Run 3, El Toro 4, and they were even closer that year. So there's 2 lines of thinking here. You have to go back to 2018, where El Toro was number 4 and Outlaw Run was number 5, to find a year where El Toro was actually higher. So one line of thinking is that they've always been really close and kind of anything can happen. The other line of thinking is that, okay, they're still 3 and 4, but the margin has kind of been widening a little bit. And maybe Outlaw Run is the decisive pick in this one. The other thing that's interesting here is how little El Toro has actually run the last couple of years. It's had so many issues. It's still not open now. It's still closed right now as they're working on it. So nobody's ridden it yet this year yet either. So at some point, is El Toro suffering from just not having people ride it at all and maybe forgetting about it? Because I know personally, when I ride new rides or re-ride rides that I haven't ridden in a while, I tend to move them up my rankings a little bit. So the longer I go without riding a ride, the more it tends to just naturally slip in my ranking. So is El Toro suffering from that type of thing, maybe?
Well, I would say no because it's in the final 4. It's here, so
Fair, fair.
I would say no. I do wonder what's going to happen with that ride because we're kind of at that position now with El Toro and Six Flags of,
They should just RMC it and make it a good ride.
well, we're at that point now, right? Where they're either going to have to completely retrack it like they did Colossus or just completely change it. And I don't know what the state of how strict New Jersey is with stuff, but the stuff that's been happening with that ride has not been good. So they can't just fix it and reopen it, I don't think. Who knows what
Well,
that.
and I don't know if I see Six Flags spending that type of money like they did with Colossus to keep it closed for a whole year and redo it if they know that in another 15 years this is the fate. I mean, wouldn't you just do? I mean, so I don't know if you
What's the
saw.
problem with what I don't understand that everyone's moving away from this concept of wood versus steel. We've got all these rides now opening up, and we don't even know if they're wood or steel. Who gives a shit? At the end of the day, just make a ride that will run. And it
Yeah,
seems to me by RMCing it, even if you don't change the layout very much, it's probably still going to be a pretty damn good ride if you
yeah.
just put steel track on the damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Lightning Rod that's mostly steel track now. You've got Boulder Dash getting Titan track on the
Yeah.
first drop. I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday pictures were surfacing that there's RMC iBox track at Fun Spot in Kissimmee that is rumored to be going on Mind Blower now.
Oh, well,
So,
God knows it
like
needs it.
so, well, yeah, that's the roughest ride out of the block I've ever ridden. But so, yeah, I mean, we may be approaching that with
Well,
El
it comes to the point of, do you want to ride that runs or do you want a wood coaster? So it seems pretty obvious to me that you can't have both at Six Flags Great Adventure. So,
Well,
and I don't know if that's
excellent.
true at every park, but it seems at Six Flags Great Adventure that is the case.
At
So
Six Flags Great Adventure, that certainly seems
you
to be the
cannot
case.
have both.
Not to go off the rails with this discussion about El Toro here, but moving on
We
to
don't
the
get to do
champ.
updates anymore, so it's kind of like we need to
Yeah,
do.
we got to fit them in there. So there we go. Moving on to the Wood Final Four is Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. So for the first time in a long time, we've got Voyage versus Outlaw Run with a Wood Championship belt on the line
Well,
here.
it's interesting because you have two coasters that are still wood. That there's no the Outlaw Run's always been the debate, hasn't it? So I
Well,
don't.
that's the one. That's the one that started the debate
Yeah,
with
it
Topper
really
Track, right?
has.
So
Yeah.
that's the one that started. So Voyage versus Outlaw Run. We've seen this one before. These two rides have gone head to head multiple times before. And they've both won going head to head in finals before. Silver Dollar City's Outlaw Run has won a couple, and Voyage has won the last several. But it's been going up against Lightning Rod. So we'll see if anyone can take down the mighty Voyage. I guess 30 have failed and one more has a shot in terms of Outlaw Run here.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at that next week. So we got Voyage versus Outlaw Run in the finals, but Andy, now is the one that everyone has been on pins and needles for. We're moving to the steel coasters. We've had so many surprises, especially through the Rumble phase. We had Untamed knocking off Fury 325 in the Rumble phase to get to the Final Four. Velocicoaster, the defending champion, gets through the Intamin Blitz gauntlet with Tyga, Maverick, um, Pantheon also in that group. Nemesis, Velocicoaster comes through and is going up against Untamed from Wallaby Holland. And then on the other side, we had the massive Iron Gwazi Steel Vengeance debate. More people selecting Iron Gwazi to win the entire tournament than people who selected Steel Vengeance or Velocicoaster, and all of those people are already wrong. And they're losing points along the way here. The farther Steel Vengeance goes, the farther those people are losing points. And between Untamed beating Fury and, Velocicoaster, I think you could argue Velocicoaster is the only ride of these four that was expected to be here because people had Fury here and it's not. Untamed is here. People had Iron Gwazi here. Steel
Well,
Vengeance is here instead. And almost nobody had Conda from Wallaby, Belgium here in the Final Four. Most people going with Expedition G-Force. So we've really got three rides that nobody really expected to be here. And yet here we are with
here we are.
a pretty damn good looking steel Final Four. We've got Untamed from Wallaby Holland going up against Velocicoaster from Universal's Islands of Adventure, and Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point going up against Conda from Wallaby Belgium. I mean, when you look at these four rides, these look like 4 really damn good rides.
Yeah, and I think for the most part here, Untamed, and I've only been on half the ride, or I've actually only been on one of the rides now that I look at the list. I forget that I haven't been on Velocicoaster yet. So but I am a critical thinker, and thusly I can watch a POV and come up with some informed opinions. And so when you look at all 4 of them, yeah, absolutely, they all look like fine rides. I do think. I don't know. I think the winners, if you had to repick and you knew this was the final 4, I think at this point in the game, is it easy? Is it easy?
I mean,
is the
you're
finals
falling
clear
back to
here?
last year. You're falling back to last year, right? Where it's Velocicoaster and Steel Vengeance. And, Velocicoaster might, I think some people would say that was the surprise last year to win. But now, everybody was on the purple Kool-Aid, the new ride is going to win train with Iron Gwazi. And now that that's out of the picture, I feel like the people who, okay, you've got your brackets, you fill out your brackets at the beginning, that's one thing. But now, in the context of sitting here right now, looking at these 4 rides and which 4 are remaining, I feel like people are struggling with, do you go back to Velocicoaster because it's the defending champ and that beat Steel Vengeance last year? Or are you going back to Steel Vengeance and saying, okay, well, everybody thought Iron Gwazi, but Steel Vengeance is still the clear winner, so maybe that's enough.
Well, I got news for you. And I said this last year too. The voters were incorrect. That Velocicoaster, through some trick of magic, uh beat out Steel Vengeance and found its way into a championship. I think that was a fluke. Steel Vengeance, you can sit there and write all you want. You can talk all you want. Anyone that says Steel Vengeance isn't the best roller coaster on the planet, I think is just flat out wrong. Just flat out wrong. I've yet to see anything or hear anybody talk to me and say, oh no, that this is why. And anytime people say, oh, this is why, it doesn't make any sense of why they say, oh, because Quasi's better or Velocicoaster's better. It doesn't make any sense. Because Steel Vengeance, I just don't see, having sat in that ride as many times as I have, I just don't see how they can even make a better ride than that. I don't even fathom. I can't even fathom. And people want that there to be something better, because what's life without hope? Because they always want something better. They're not happy with what they got. You got the
Yep.
best damn ride ever built in the history of humankind. And yeah, you want more, but then they fall into the trap of thinking that something is better because they want something to be better. And that's where the trap is, that they want something to be better. So they start thinking that this is better. And that's the bullshit of it. So the voters were wrong last year. The voters were correct this year, because everything I've seen with Gwazi does not, in my mind, say it's even close in the same hemisphere as Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance, it's
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad ride. I haven't been on it. but but
Yeah, the thing for me with Velocicoaster is, and I've been saying this since day one that I rode Velocicoaster, and I even said it after you remember when Dason and I rode Iron Gwazi
yeah,
on Media Day, we were saying this is the best ride in Florida, and I thought that for all of about 24 hours until I went to Universal the next morning and rode Velocicoaster and said, "Oh my God, I still like this one better." And the thing with Velocicoaster, and I think the argument is the same whether you're talking about Iron Gwazi or Steel Vengeance, in terms of putting a roller coaster on the ground and just riding a roller coaster. Steel Vengeance, even Iron Gwazi, even Untamed, Fury 325, maybe. I don't know. Um, Roller coaster, yes. Steel Vengeance, yes. Iron Gwazi, yes, probably. Um, the thing with Velocicoaster is, if you put value into the added experience that the theme and the story and the Raptors and that entire thing and the whole experience of going through the queue, and that if you put a lot of stock into that, you're going to end up liking Velocicoaster better as an overall experience. But in terms of riding a roller coaster, I'm going to sit in a car and do some wacky shit for 3 minutes. Everything that you said is absolutely correct. But regardless of whether or not you put value into the theming and the story and all of that, to me, Steel Vengeance, Iron Gwazi has never been a debate, because I've said that if you cherry pick individual elements from Iron Gwazi and the similar elements from Steel Vengeance, you can cherry pick individual elements where Iron Gwazi might do it a little bit better. But when you put the whole package together, there's not a good argument that I've heard, and I don't believe there is a good argument that exists that gets me to Iron Gwazi is better than Steel Vengeance. Because when people tell me they like Iron Gwazi better, the reason that they usually say is because it doesn't hurt my legs as much because it doesn't have all the bunny hops at the end. But that's exactly why Steel Vengeance is better, because it's everything that Iron Gwazi is, plus a lot more.
Well, and the thing is, it's one of the few times when you are ranking coasters that you actually have an apples to apples comparison. You don't get this very often. You don't get like even back in the day, like the closest we came to this was Millennium Force and Super and Bizarro, because it was almost an apples to apples comparison there. So almost, both Intamins, both tall, both had similar styles of layouts and stuff. So that was the last time you could really get an apples to apples, but it's hard to compare Vengeance to Velocicoaster. And for all the people that say they can't compare wood coasters to steel coasters, I fail to see how you can compare something like
pick Vengeance. Which one you like better?
Like I just don't understand how you can compare Mantis to Steel Vengeance, but you can't compare Voyage to Steel Vengeance. It makes no sense to me. It doesn't logically.
It does not make sense.
No. So so there you can actually make different arguments. You can say, well, I like the theming on Velocicoaster. I like being on a steel coaster that does big inversions or does hang time, or like you actually have different, very big differences between those style of rides. But when you have Gwazi and Vengeance, you're comparing apples and apples. Like there's no question.
Well, and that's exactly why when I look at my personal subjective rankings, I put Velocicoaster as at number 3 below my Manta and Nemesis sentimental favorites, because it's really because over time and over going to Universal the last year with my season pass, how many times did I get off of Velocicoaster and immediately go stand in the hour-long line to go ride it again and to be in that queue and to be in that space? And as much as I love Steel Vengeance and think that in a vacuum it's the better roller coaster, I can never say that I did that for Steel Vengeance. Whether it's I'd rather pay the $150. Well,
the line's more like 3 hours most of the time.
Well, so. that too. But for me, I'd rather pay the $150 to get the fast lane to not have to stand in the 3-hour line.
Yeah.
Whereas Velocicoaster, there was one day where for 4 or 5 hours straight, I just got back in the 45-minute line and rode it five or six times in a row. And I enjoyed being in that queue and being in that space and just having that experience. So I understand the Velocicoaster side. I even get on board with that line of thinking. I've never fully comprehended the Iron Gwazi over Steel Vengeance debate. And it's funny that we're talking about Iron Gwazi and it's not even on the screen here.
But what are these other 2 rides on the screen?
Well, so we've got Untamed, which again, Untamed has been a runner-up before. Untamed nearly took down Steel Vengeance in 2019 in its opening year. I've often described it as Steel Vengeance, just half the size. And that's
another apples to apples comparison. Look at that.
Right. Again, like you said with Iron Gwazi, a very rare opportunity to make such a good apples to apples comparison with Untamed and Steel Vengeance. And then we've got Condo, which is this Intamin Hypercoaster. It's kind of like if Expedition G-Force was built today. It's got the same sort of wacky drop. It's got the same sort of airtime hills. It's got this weird non-inverting Cobra roll turnaround, which looks really, really, really cool. And Conda making it to the final four here has inspired me to try and get to back to Wallaby, Belgium to ride this perhaps in the next year or two. It looks that good. It looks that fun, and it looks unique too. With all the B&M hypers and Intamin hypers over the years, this one looks a little bit different and really, really interesting. So, so this first matchup, Untamed versus Velocicoaster. The defending champion Velocicoaster going up against Untamed, which has never been a champion but has been number 2 before. Going head to head here. Do you have a prediction? Are you staying on the Velocicoaster side here at this point?
I would think so. Untame's that wild card because it's always up there. It's always up there. It's like it's in the mix, but I would tend to think that the reigning champion moves on here.
And there's a lot of people who picked Velocicoaster to win. And nobody picked Untamed to win. I don't know if that's a huge shock here. But just kind of looking at what the picks were here. So moving on to the Steel Championship from the 2022 Ride Warrior Choice Awards is Untamed from Wallaby Holland. Andy, to be the man, you've got to beat the man, and Untamed has just beaten the man. Untamed from Wallaby Holland has knocked off Jurassic World Velocicoaster. What do you think of this? As if we couldn't have any more plot twists in the steel bracket this year, just when you think you've seen it all.
Well, the game is not over yet either. So
no, it's not. Now all bets are off, right? Because Velocicoaster beat Vengeance last year, and now Untamed has beaten Velocicoaster.
Well,
and Vengeance hasn't even gotten by Conda yet, right? So at this point, who knows what's going to happen?
I don't. Oh my god! Like I'm exhausted. This tournament's exhausting. Like I can feel your pain through the screen. I don't know. I do
brackets have gone in the trash.
Well, and I'll fall back of what I just previously said. I do think Velocicoaster was highly overranked last year. I think it won the championship. Great, whatever. But I'm very curious to see. And don't get me wrong. I do think it could be a top 5 ride. Like I don't think it could. Like it should probably be in the top 4, top 5. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to where is it going to end up falling, I don't know if number 1 is that answer. I don't know if number 1's that answer across the board. And obviously, it's not the answer this year because it's at least number 2 at this point.
At best, it's number 2.
At best, number 2. So, at least it could be.
And if it's number 2, that means Steel Vengeance isn't even in the top 2. So
yeah. So like it's kind of like I don't know. I don't know. I think the correction is happening though. So for all the people that are about to jump off a bridge somewhere, I think the correction is happening. And you probably should have been jumping off way before this. So there you go. But that's my thoughts. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So there's only a handful of people who nobody has Condo winnings, and only a handful of people. Nobody has Untamed winning, and only a handful of people have Steel Vengeance winning. So there's a very select number of people who filled out brackets that are
correct.
Oh, they're popping champagne already at this point. But we've got to get our last finalist here. We've got to decide between Steel Vengeance and Conda. And, is this the end of the road for Conda, or is this new ride? Is Conda maybe the new ride that gets the favoritism as opposed to an Iron Gwazi, or is this the end of the line and we're going to see an Untamed Steel Vengeance rematch from a few years ago?
I like the Conda POV a lot. I like it a lot.
It looks really good, doesn't it?
It looks really good. But once again, if Conda beats Steel Vengeance here, The
people are
voters
just
got it
wrong.
wrong. So
Okay. All right. Well, the final finalist that needs to be decided tonight is either Steel Vengeance or Conda, and it is going to be Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point. So, Andy, a flashback to we're gonna party like it's 2019 here.
yeah, before
It's
everything went to hell, we're just hit the reset button, baby.
so last time that these two rides met in a thrilling 32 championship, a global pandemic shortly followed.
And I got two kids out of that deal, so
you did. You got two kids, and
I can't afford two more. So let's.
I got a garage.
Yeah, you got a garage. You did get it. You got a big garage.
Yes, I did. So, Untamed from Wallaby Holland is going up against Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point in the Steel Championship next week. And again, on the wood side, we've got Voyage from Holiday World going up against Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. So 3 out of 4 rides still remaining on these two brackets built by Rocky Mountain Construction. In 2019, it was all 4 because we had Lightning Rod I'm sorry, it was still 3. It was just a different one. So Voyage, the one that's able to buck the trend, if you will. Any final thoughts before we wrap up for this evening?
Who knows? Who knows? We got new champion. We got at least one new champion.
Yeah.
And we got maybe a new champion now. Come on now, stop.
Okay. Well, at least one new champion, but what we can say, well, I guess we can't say this, right? It'll be a new champion from last year, but they may be repeating champions because we still may. I mean, either way on the wood side, because both of those rides are defending champions. But I guess I forgot that Untamed has never actually won because it's always been beaten by at least Steel Vengeance. But yeah. So we could potentially still have a new champion here altogether. But yes, new champion on the Steel side for sure. So we'll get to that next week. We'll find out who our 2 champions are. We'll also find out who the bracket champion is for those of you keeping score at home. And of course, what everybody's looking forward to, the top 50 wood and steel lists from 50 up to number 1. So we'll see just where exactly all of these rides ranked. We'll see what some of the first rides out were, and we'll kind of see where some of these rides that we're expecting to be in these final 4s that weren't. We'll see where they ended up landing on all of these lists. So that's coming up next time.
Well, as always, I am Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, my Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.